everybody, how you going today? It is so good to see you. I do hope that you are super well. Today we're here to talk about the brand new R6II. No, not the R6II. Of course, the R6III has just been released, and we're here to talk about that. What I just want to touch on before we get into how important the R6III is, the R6II, along with the A7 IV and the Z5 II, or the Z6III, depending on how you think about it, are Nikon, Sony, and Canon's professional entry-level to full-frame cameras. And there's a couple of things that denotes professional for me, and we can start with simply in-body image stabilization and 2 card slots. They're just some of the basics. There's a few other things in there as well. And thus, the R6III is Canon's next entry into this very important sector of the mirrorless camera market. Let's get into it. The R6III is here. It's huge. Well, the sensor's huge anyway. The R6II with its 6,000 pixels to the R6III with 6,960 pixels. This is a 16% increase in pixels on the long edge. What does it do for us? Well, I think more importantly than stills, even so it does have a positive impact on stills from a resolution perspective. Yes, you've got more ability to crop into the frame, but for video users, what this allows for is higher res video. When we think about the R6II, the Z5 II, and the A7 IV, all of those cameras capped out at 4K. Even so, these two could have gone to 6K and this one could have gone to 7K. They all oversampled down to that 4K. What we have here with the R6III is they're going to allow you access to all of that 7K wide sensor. Now, probably the other massive thing for videographers is the fact that that 7K can be shot in up to 60 frames in both 10-bit and in RAW. And Canon have also included Open Gate. And I think this is something that we are going to see roll out in the next generation, and now this is part of the next generation, the R6III. We're going to see Open Gate appear in all of our entry-level, full-frame, yet professional mirrorless hybrid cameras, of which the A7 IV and the Z5 II, well, they are current incumbents. And of course, the Z6III can be included in this. And that is, I believe that they will all have Open Gate. The R6III now has Open Gate, so you can get that full 7K of width and also the full height, the same height that we get with our 35mm images. There's that different ratio. But shooting in Open Gate, you can only get up to 29.97 or rounded to 30 frames per second. Still, that's pretty amazing. From my perspective, whether I'm using the 6K of the ZR or even the 5.4K option, this allows me to zoom beyond the 4K that all of these cameras offer. As in, you can zoom into the image, you can change the frame around, like I am right now. 7K just gives you a little bit more reach than 6K, but both of them are fantastic. It does shoot at 40 frames per second in stills. I believe that's in RAW. Of course, that's going to be electronic shutter only. The camera caps out at 12 frames per second with a mechanical shutter, which makes it similar to the Z5 II here. And well, the A7 IV is even slower in mechanical shutter. Of course, we do expect the A7 V very soon. Also being touted is pre-capture running at 20 frames per second. This is pretty exciting and pretty amazing at this price point. The Z6III, the Z5 II, and the A7 IV, none of those cameras shoot in pre-capture RAW. I do expect, as we can see here with this now, that pre-capture will roll down to these full-frame entry-level, but also professional-level cameras in the next generations from both Sony and Nikon. We have 120 frames per second in 4K full-frame, 180 frames per second, or 179.95, I think it is, in 1080p. Interestingly, the ZR and the Z6III both shoot at 240 frames per second in 1080p. That says to me that this sensor is running slower. It just simply cannot scan that fast. It's an interesting differential, and the game of leapfrog that these manufacturers play is so interesting, because some elements of the R6III are going to be superior over these cameras, the Nikon cameras and the Sony cameras, yet other aspects are not. For example, there is no mention of 32-bit audio in the R6III, yet we have it here in the ZR, which we're shooting on right now. Canon is stating, as of course this is probably the same or a very similar sensor to the Canon C50, it is 15 stops of dynamic range. Now look, this is interesting. I've had a lot of discussion about the dynamic range of cameras, including of course the ZR. And well, not only does testing appear to be different, because we've seen it happen with Cine D versus Gerald Undone, they get different results. I don't know where these things lie at the end of the day. Ultimately, when it comes to dynamic range, if we expose our images well, which is actually what we're all in the business of doing, none of us want to push into grainy shadows, whatever brand of camera we're using. We're going to get absolutely fantastic pictures. I'm on a ZR right now. Can you tell? Is it 5, 10, 12, 15 stops of dynamic range? Don't know. Nikon tell me it's 15. That's what it says on the box. I'm okay with that. Of course, just keep in mind, everybody, that there is a massive difference between pixel peeping and looking at a finished image. And these conversations about dynamic range, yes, they're important, but are you getting the image or not? Does the gear suit you or not? Do you have a whole set of lenses that go with it or not? I don't think dynamic range from any camera that you can buy today is holding you back from creating what you need to create, especially if you have great storytelling. Because at the end of the day, I was talking to my friend Joe, you all know Joe, you've seen him on the channel here and there, about the fact that a great image, storytelling, craft, light, all of these elements, they are far, far more important than the camera that you used. My first book that I released has images spanning from the 1990s all the way up to towards the middle of the 2010s. So I had film, 35mm medium format, 6 megapixel cameras, 12 megapixel cameras, and I think maybe up to 24 or 36 megapixel cameras. No person has ever said to me, oh, I can tell the difference in the cameras. Oh, it's a problem for changing the quality or value of these images. It's just not the most important part, and we spend an inordinate amount of time pixel peeping or worrying about differences in dynamic range. Sorry for that little sidebar there, but I think it's important. Another interesting thing from my perspective about this camera is that the dots and the EVF don't seem to have been upgraded. It's still the 3.69 that we see in this little puppy here. Maybe it's a little bit brighter, maybe it's got slightly larger color gamut, but Canon have stuck with that for the R6III. An exciting upgrade that we're all happy about is full-size HDMI. That's great. And another one that I love is that the camera has a tally light on it. The ZR has a tally light. I can see it. I think all, especially if they are professional level and up, should have some form of tally light on them, because they're all hybrids. They all shoot. The more you pay, you're getting a great camera that's both great at stills and video. Tally light should be part of the equation. And the R6III has one. Awesome. And it has the vari-angle screen, which I can only guess it's this same little guy here. And I have to say, using the ZR these days, these screens just seem a bit tiny, and they really do. Is there a capacity to make these bigger? Well, the difficulty is that it's taking a bit of this space and it's taking a bit of this space. And thus you'd have to make your cameras slightly larger. So a camera like a Z8, an R5, Z9, R1, yeah, definitely could have larger screens. And I would probably start to advocate for that. And there has been the addition of waveforms, zebras, and false colors in video to make the process of recording video even easier than it was before. And as we would expect for a camera that is sold to professionals and everybody else, of course, enthusiasts and hobbyists as well, semi-pros, it has a high level of weather sealing and, well, they're saying over 500,000 potential shutter actuations. That's a lot. That's awesome, considering these days we can shoot electronically for a lot of what we shoot. Look, this is really interesting to me. We have the A7 IV, the FX2, same sensor. We have the Z6 III and the ZR, same sensor. And now by the look of it, we have the C50 and the R6III with the same sensor. The camera companies are telling us something here. We can talk about that in another video, but it's really exciting to see the industry continuing to push forward, continuing to give us more features. It does pretty much feel like an iterative upgrade. Yeah, yes, it's got that little bit of extra resolution, but that's 6,000 to 7,000 pixels. It's not a huge difference. I think it's more important from a marketing perspective than it actually is from a photographic perspective. I think in the world that we live in today, I would like my photo size to be as big as possible at this point in the market, able to capture nice, clean light. And if I want to take my 6,000 or 7,000 pixel files and make them enormous, then I can use AI to double the pixel count. Doubling it is really easy for it to do. And suddenly you have, in a 24 megapixel camera, you have 12,000 pixels on the long end, which will allow you to do anything. And if you're in the 33 that this one has, and the 32.5 that this one's new sibling has, well, you're up around the 14,000 pixel mark. The interesting thing about 12,000 or 14,000, I've done a lot of printing in my time, which is the only time you ever need to get anywhere near that big. There's no real world difference between 12,000 and 14,000 pixels based on the technology we have today and how large we can print. I'd love to know, what do you think about the brand new Canon R6III? How do you think about the fact that we now have the first of the next generation of cameras? Next, we will have the A7 IV. Rumors are telling us it'll probably be announced in December, and we will probably see that shipping January or February. This is shipping by the end of the year. We've got a very busy time ahead. The game of leapfrog between the manufacturers continues. Will we get a semi-stacked sensor, as has been rumored, or will it stay the same? Who knows? I think it's very exciting to see how all these cameras compare. I don't think there's any clear winners at this point in time because they all do things a little bit differently. And as I've repeated a few times in this video, once we get up to these sorts of resolutions, there's really not a big difference between them in the real world from a resolution perspective. All right, everybody, I'd love to know your thoughts. It's been so good to see you. And if this is your first time here, I would love to see you again. So please do subscribe, please share, and please like. All right, bye for now.